Right now, a 75-year-old woman is walking through a forest with a shovel, and she's about to accidentally delete an entire country from the internet. Stay with me. I'm FactSpark, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because this is exactly the kind of thing we cover here. In 2018, for the very first time in human history, more than half the world's population had access to the internet. Half. And since then, we haven't slowed down. We've doubled down. Right now, roughly 4 billion people spend an average of 6 hours a day online. Every single minute, 500 hours of video get uploaded to YouTube. 294 million emails fly across the globe, and hundreds of millions of messages get sent before you can finish reading this sentence. The internet isn't just something we use, it's the skeleton of modern civilization. Banking systems run on it, power grids depend on it, hospitals, airports, stock markets, all of it sitting on top of one gigantic invisible structure that most people never think about. So here's the question that should keep you up at night. What actually happens if it disappears? And before we get there, because we absolutely will, let me ask you something I genuinely want your answer to in the comments. Do you think modern society could survive even one full week without internet? Drop your number down there. You might be surprised by what the data says by the end of this video. But first, could it even happen? Is this a real possibility or just a fun thought experiment? Locally, internet shutdowns happen way more often than most people realize.
Algeria and Sudan have both cut off internet access during national exam periods, not to punish students, but to stop them from leaking questions or cheating in real time. It sounds almost comical until you realize it actually works. In 2019 alone, there were 213 documented internet shutdowns across 33 countries. More than half of those happened in India. Venezuela had 12 separate blackouts that year. These aren't freak accidents. They're becoming a pattern. And the reasons vary wildly. Some are government-ordered during elections or political protests. Others come from cyber attacks. A few are just pure infrastructure failure. But these are all local, regional, contained. The real question, the one that makes engineers nervous, is whether something like this could happen everywhere, all at once. Look at a map of the internet from 2005. Every node, every connection, every route, it's chaotic, sprawling, and intentionally so. There is no central hub, no master switch, no single point of failure you could bomb or hack to bring the whole thing down. US military trained the Cold War to survive a nuclear attack. If one route goes down, the data just takes a longer path. Simple as that. By 2015, that map looks even more interconnected, even more redundant. More routes, more paths, more resilience. So pulling the plug from the top? Not possible. But the internet has a much more interesting vulnerability, and it's hiding at the bottom of the ocean. Approximately 99% of all global internet traffic doesn't travel through satellites. It travels through underwater cables. Fiber optic lines running along the ocean floor, connecting continents, carrying the weight of the modern world. And in 2008, there were only 406 of these cables in active service. 406 cables for the entire planet. Combined, they stretch about 12 million kilometers, enough to wrap around the Earth roughly 300 times. Now, think about how many things could go wrong with a cable running across the ocean floor. In 2008, there were 3 separate cable incidents in a matter of weeks. The worst happened in January when a ship dropped its anchor off the coast of Egypt, completely by accident, and sliced straight through one of these cables. The result? 60% of the Middle East lost internet access. India saw a 70% disruption from one anchor, dropped by accident. And it's not always accidents. In 2013, 3 divers were caught in an Egyptian port deliberately cutting a cable. They didn't manage to kill the internet, but they slowed it significantly. In 2015, there were over a dozen similar incidents in the San Francisco Bay Area. People dressed as utility workers, climbing into storm drains, cutting cables with tools. Every single time, it caused slowdowns, but not total failure. Even animals have gotten involved. Sharks, actual sharks, have been documented biting through undersea cables. Rock slides have severed connections.
And the remarkable thing is, this kind of damage happens roughly once every few days somewhere in the world. The equally remarkable thing is how fast repair crews respond. In 2018, a single cut left the entire country of Mauritania completely offline, and it was fixed in 2 days.
But the story that genuinely sounds made up, Georgia, 2011. A 75-year-old woman was wandering through a forest looking for scrap metal to sell. She spotted a thick copper cable. She dug it up, cut it, and walked away with it. That cable was the backbone of Armenia's internet connection. The entire country gone offline for 12 hours because of one grandmother with a shovel who had absolutely no idea what she'd just done. So physical destruction is a real but manageable threat. What about something more sophisticated? Could a hacker sitting at home actually bring down the internet? On October 21st, 2016, we got the closest real-world test of that idea. A group of hackers launched a massive DDoS attack, that stands for Distributed Denial of Service, against a company called Dyn, which was one of the major DNS providers in the United States. Here's why that matters. Dyn takes websites like .com into the numerical IP addresses that computers actually use. Without it, you'd have to memorize a string of numbers just to check your email. Dyn was one of the key systems keeping that translation working. The attackers flooded Dyn's servers with millions of fake requests simultaneously, so many that the system couldn't distinguish real traffic from fake and simply collapsed under the weight. The result? Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, Twitter, Reddit, the New York Times, all of them went down at the same time for hours. 3 waves of attacks hit that day, and Dyn's engineers managed to resolve each one within a couple of hours. But it was a warning shot, a glimpse of what a truly coordinated, large-scale attack could look like. Now, could a bigger, better organized group of hackers do something permanent, something global?
The honest answer is it's extremely unlikely. Pulling down every critical internet system simultaneously across the entire world in a sustained way, the coordination required would be almost impossibly complex. Not zero chance, but close. The scenarios that could actually kill the internet globally would almost certainly involve something far more catastrophic. A large-scale war, a civilization-level crisis, something that would make internet access feel like the least of our problems. Keep that thought. We're coming back to it. So let's do the thought experiment anyway. Imagine the internet goes down. Not from a war, not from a nuclear event, just it stops. The cables fail, the servers go dark, the DNS resolves nothing. What actually happens? On a personal level, the adjustment is jarring, but survivable. No WhatsApp means going back to SMS. No video calls means actual phone calls. No Google Maps means either printing directions or, for the first time in years, folding an actual paper map. Streaming services disappear. Social media disappears. Remote work, for most industries, disappears. Uncomfortable, annoying, deeply inconvenient, but survivable. The economy is a completely different story. E-commerce alone, just online retail, was generating roughly $5 trillion annually by 2021. That number climbs every year. $5 trillion. That's roughly equal to the entire GDP of Japan, the 3rd largest economy in the world, or approximately 6% of total global GDP. Gone. Every day the internet stays off. But that's just direct online sales.
When you factor in every business that relies on internet infrastructure, logistics, communication, financial markets, supply chains, estimates suggest that a highly internet-dependent country could lose around 1% of its total GDP for every single day without connectivity. A moderately connected country, roughly 0.5%. Even a less connected nation would bleed around 0.4% daily. Run those numbers out over a week, and you're looking at economic damage that rivals major natural disasters. Run them out over a month, and you're in uncharted territory. Here's where it gets genuinely strange, though, because not everything gets worse.
The digital world generates an enormous amount of what you might call invisible pollution. In Spain alone, 80% of all emails sent never get opened. Every single email generates roughly 10 grams of CO2 over the course of a year, from the server storing it, the data centers cooling it, the electricity powering all of it. Multiply that across hundreds of millions of emails, and you get close to 800,000 tons of CO2 annually. In one country, that's the equivalent of 500,000 cars driving continuously. Globally, digital pollution in 2020 accounted for 38% of total carbon dioxide emissions, more than the entire aviation industry, more than all the planes in the sky combined. If the internet went dark, that number would drop to zero immediately. Now, obviously, none of us actually want the internet to disappear, and realistically, a total global shutdown remains somewhere between extremely unlikely and essentially impossible under normal circumstances.
The redundancy built into the system, the distributed nature of the network, the sheer number of cables, servers, and alternative pathways, it all works together to make catastrophic failure very hard to achieve. But the cables still get cut. The DDoS attacks still happen. The grandmother with the shovel is still out there somewhere. And the honest takeaway from all of this is that something we treat as permanent, as invisible, as simply part of the air we breathe, is actually a physical thing. Cables, servers, buildings full of hard drives. It exists in the real world, and the real world is messier than we like to admit. So go back to that question I asked at the beginning. Could modern society survive one full week without internet? Tell me your answer in the comments. After everything you just heard, I'm genuinely curious whether your answer changed. If this kind of content is what you're into, you know what to do. FactSpark. See you in the next one.